Looking for financial insights you can trust?
How do you protect yourself as an investor? What's the strategy?
I think it's really simple. I think you just want to be diversified in your portfolio.
The Payne family brings real-world experience to every conversation.
Well, I think that's the problem right now is, right, a lot of people that are close to retirement, they're taking so much risks. And if we do get a big sell-off, it could derail their retirement.
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
The Rev and the Rabbi on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Good morning. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Reverend, today is known as Super Bowl Sunday. And you know, as a chaplain, as a rabbi, I'm here to bring comfort to people because there are so many disappointed, disheartened, dejected Giants and Jets fans. So I'm here to comfort. Just know that, of course, I come from New England, but that will not in any way sway my compassion. But
the only reason we're talking about this is because the Patriots are playing.
I can't think of a better reason.
In the Super Bowl, we would not be having this conversation. All right?
Well, you know what's interesting? I sometimes tell members of my community, treat Super Bowl Sunday beginning at 6 p.m. like a Jewish holiday. If you call your kids, they're not going to pick up the phone. They're not going to answer you. It's like a Sabbath. It's like a sacred, whatever you want to call it. But there's no communication for those 3 to 4 hours. And you find that if you go through the streets, because I've done it.
No external communication, because you've got tailgate parties, you've got watch parties.
Yeah, but not with your parents.
You got
your parents don't come to
not with your parents. Yeah. Well, that's changed. That is changed. It's amazing. Really? How Super Bowl Sunday joins together whole families, and that's why there was always this discussion about, making sure that the intermission was family friendly, because you have whole families across the country who are watching now together. Young kids are growing up influenced by their parents' team and their parents' love for the sport. It's true in baseball, basketball, but especially in football, NFL.
Can you imagine if we ever took our parents to a tailgate party? I can see my mother. This is how you treat a mother. You bring her out this cold weather as people are drinking beer and eating whatever. But there is something, you're right, there is something very nice about people sitting together. At least communicating with each other during the halftime, or is that the time they don't talk to each other?
But food. I mean, you're talking about wings, buffalo wings. You're talking about, sliders. You're talking about all of the food that's associated with Super Bowl. You have watch parties. In fact, I will tell you, in the evangelical world, there are churches who sponsor watch parties. They open the big screen in the church, and they will have refreshments and whatnot, and they will host a Super Bowl watch party. It creates community. That's what it does.
Well,
and that's important.
Let me mention, all of those choices that you mentioned are kosher. You can get them kosher. So you don't have an excuse.
Double the cost.
That's another story. That's something else. But, some people take these Super Bowl events so to heart. Like, my God, if their team doesn't win, they're devastated. And it's a game. It repeats every year. You have another Super Bowl year after year.
So let me ask you a question.
Please.
Suppose you have believers on both teams. You've got Christians praying on the Seahawks team, Christians praying on the Patriots. You've got Jews praying on both teams and, praying for the win. All right. How does God decide this one? How does he? Is God the deciding factor? What do we say? Everybody's praying.
To quote my mother, may both teams win. I mean, she would look at it and say, it's a wonderful moment. Just to be in it, you feel blessed. People are watching you, surrounding you, praying for you. I mean, look at the bigger picture. Stand back from that competitiveness and look at the community gathering. That's where we are. We should.
That's well said.
Yeah.
Well said, Rabbi. Because look, what happens, when someone says, I thank God, or, I give honor to God because we won.
Right, yeah.
What does it say to the prayers of the other team?
Yeah. Like God cares about which team wins.
How do we understand that? And I don't have explanations for it. I just believe that we should pray no matter what, win or lose. But like you said, may both teams win.
Yeah.
I like what your mom said.
One of the most moving moments I find is at the end of the game. Very often, both teams come together and pray together. You see them.
You know what? You're pointing something out that the Patriots. In fact, it was after a Patriot win and they made it into the Super Bowl. Right? They all took a knee in a circle.
Yeah.
And they prayed, and there wasn't a lot of criticism. There wasn't a lot of people on social media blasting it. So maybe there's hope that we are allowing people to, believe in something transcendent, believe in someone transcendent, and believe that we're part of something much greater than ourselves, and there are forces greater than us that are involved in our world, our reality. I think that's an important sign.
And the people on the other team praying with you, they are not the enemies. I mean, they're praying with you, and there's one gathering.
After the game. After the game, they're not the enemy. Before and during, they're the enemy. Okay.
I got to take a moment. I want to commend the owner of the Patriots, Robert Kraft, because you're going to see commercials. I've seen a preview. You're going to see commercials about the blue square, where Kraft Foundation has made it possible for people to obtain a blue square, which is a stance against anti-Semitism, against hatred. And there'll be commercials that emphasize the need to stand up and to really be there for the other who's under attack. There's a moving piece there of a young boy going to school, going to his locker, and as he bends down, there's a African-American kid who comes over and takes a sticker off his back. Somebody, they put stickers on your back as you're walking down, and it said, you're a Jew. And the African-American young man and the Jewish young man walk out together saying that we need to be there for each other. And given our historical alliance, how moving and meaningful is that?
We met at several events, but we sat together at a rally in Washington, D.C. It was 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago, and had a chance to really talk with him and get his ideas in terms of, the issues of rising anti-Semitism. And it was happening then, if you remember. And it's important that we understand any type of dehumanization, no matter who it is something that we should stand up against. Now, there's a lot of controversy with Gaza, what's happening there, how it's been handled by the Israeli government. And I get it, but you don't dismiss an entire people, and hold, every Jew in the world, on the planet, responsible for decisions that are being made by a geopolitical state.
Yeah.
I think that's very, very important.
And you got to be prepared to hear the argument on the other side. Gaza is complicated. We didn't get to Gaza, just after October 7th. There's a whole history of what transpired. And I think what people need to do, and unfortunately we spoke about this last week in terms of the formation of opinions, people don't take the time to look at the history of a country, to look at the history of conflict, and reach a decision as to who's guilty without knowing all the facts, based on, it could be a YouTube, could be a TikTok, could be whatever, but it's not a comprehensive analysis of the problem.
And I think we have to be careful when it's only about placing guilt. I think it should be understanding what are the problems and how can we find solutions together. You know, I was preaching a message, and basically the title was Your Past is Not Your Prison. Your past is your context. It explains, your convictions. It explains your patterns. It explains your values. It explains the forces that were at work to shape you into who you are today, good and bad forces. And we this is what we say. We say, wait a minute, let me just give you some context here.
Right.
What do we mean when we say that? We're trying to say it's not as simple. It's not as black and white as you may feel. There's nuance, there's complexity, there's history, there's forces at play. Let me give you an understanding.
Right.
And we've got to be able to do that patiently with everybody in every situation.
And to be ready to explain, how did we get to this point? Yeah. This didn't happen overnight. How did we get here? And also, if we're talking about some of the conflicts in the world, the question we ask in the Jewish community, why aren't people marching for what's happening in Iran? We saw the demonstrations. Gaza, where are the demonstrations with Iran?
Yeah. You and I had a meeting.
Selective anger.
And it can't be. You and I had an interesting meeting with a representative from Rwanda. We've got to go to a break, and I think let's talk about that when we come back. Right? So stay tuned for more of the Rev and the Rabbi this Super Bowl Sunday morning, right here on Red Apple Radio Network.
The Rev and the Rabbi on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Looking for financial insights you can trust?
How do you protect yourself as an investor? What's the strategy?
I think it's really simple. I think you just want to be diversified in your portfolio.
The Payne family brings real-world experience to every conversation.
Well, I think that's the problem right now is, right, a lot of people that are close to retirement, they're taking so much risks. And if we do get a big sell-off, it could derail their retirement.
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Adobe Acrobat Studio, so brand new. Show me all the things PDFs can do. Do your work with ease and speed. PDF Spaces is all you need. Do hours of research in an instant with key insights from an AI assistant. Pick a template with a click. Now your prezzo looks super slick. Close that deal? Yeah, you won. Do that, doing that, did that, done. Now you can do that with Acrobat. Now you can do that with the all-new Acrobat. It's time to do your best work with the all-new Adobe Acrobat Studio.
Have you ever wanted to make your own Super Bowl commercial? This year, Uber Eats is putting their commercial in your hands and letting you build your own version right in the Uber Eats app. It's kind of like building a burrito bowl. You pick your scenes like ingredients, pick the celebrities you want to see, and watch your commercial come to life. Plus, you can even unlock a deal. There are over 1,000 variations to make. Give it a try. Just open the Uber Eats app, tap the football icon, and make yours now. Promotions while supplies last.
The Rev and the Rabbi.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
And Rev, you tell me that you put an ad in on the Super Bowl?
We got to talk about those Super Bowl ads. You want to talk about that first?
Well, we just
about our conversation.
Whatever you want, wherever you want to go, let's do it.
All right. Well, look, I announced it, before the break that you and I had a meeting with a representative from Rwanda, and I was pleasantly surprised. I did not know about this exhibit. Is it an exhibit that's in Rwanda that speaks of the Holocaust, Holocaust remembrance, but it compares it to the atrocities that were perpetrated in Rwanda itself. It's finding common ground between, the Jewish Holocaust and the loss of life within Rwanda's history.
Yeah.
I thought that was very, very interesting.
I thought what also was very important was we said we can make distinctions, we can be particular, we can be universal. We can talk about Holocaust, we can talk about genocide, and one of the things that we're talking about as well is that having a Holocaust survivor speaking of his or her experience, having a Rwandan speak of his or her experience, and see where there's commonality and where there's separation. Because one of the things you said is people don't nuance has disappeared. It's either one way or the other. There's no gray area. And I think when you look at things in depth, you see, well, there are distinctions that need to be made, because otherwise you're diminishing or diluting the tragedy that some people endured, trying to put it all together, under one label. And I think you're not doing a great service to people who suffered.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting, and we'll share, if anything comes out of the meeting, because we talked about the possibility of, having some type of gathering of clergy to talk about these issues that are happening around the world.
Yeah. And
so it's
what I found very also instructive in our discussion was that we just weren't going to talk about tragedy alone. We weren't just going to talk about the negative, but the question, where do we go from here? How do we turn this tragedy into a moment of triumph of the human spirit? And I think sometimes, and we've had this discussion, I've said to members of my community, we need positive Jewish experiences. We have to look at the past, the horrors of the past, but the young people in particular have to have hope for the future. And you can't do that simply based on negativism. There has to be positive.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. One of the books that Dr. King wrote as, he moved from the Dr. King of 63 into the Dr. King of 68 before he was assassinated is just that. It's titled, Where Do We Go From Here? Because he understood in all that we've accomplished, right? There's got to be a direction. Where do we go? What are the next steps? How do we continue this? Without letting it die or fall by the wayside. And that's an important conversation, because we could talk about the pain and the destruction and the atrocities on and on and on. But, okay, what are we going to do about this? Right. That is the next and very necessary conversation.
Right. Yeah. And how do we inspire young people to be proud of who they are and not simply to look at their history as all about victimhood? Someone called it the lachrymose view of history. It's all about sadness. It's all about sorrow. But there are many, many positive moments, and we want young people to take the positive and lead a more spiritual and spirited life. And you can't do that just looking at the negative.
Interesting you raise that, because we live in a world now with, I'm going to express the term here, competitive victimization. I'll say it again, competitive victimization. It's like everybody competing to be the victim.
Yeah.
Everybody's claiming to be the victim. No, we're the victims. And it's politically true. Democrats, they're the victims. Republicans, they're the victims. Conservative, everybody is playing that card. And it's easy to do that and not sit at the table and have conversation.
Yeah.
Look, I appreciate there's a two-party system in our nation because it holds people accountable. One party may emphasize certain values, and a certain way of spending, and another party opposite. They look, for another set of values, and I think they're all important to American society. So thank God for a two-party system.
Yeah.
Are we going back to the Super Bowl, or?
Well, I just want to,
on that?
before the Super Bowl, because we'll get to that. Following up on the hatred, you and I came across a very interesting article that during this intense cold, murders went down and hatred went up. Right?
Murders went down. Go ahead. And
murders and hatred went up. There were more hate attacks, fewer murders. And we looked at that for a moment and said, that teaches us the following, that external forces cannot overcome internal forces.
Yeah, I look at it as a signal. We're talking about hatred up and murders down in New York City, and I think that it's number one, it's not a contradiction. It's pointing to a split between internal temperature and external behavior. I think that's how I would express it. The internal temperature is represented by hatred being up. but the external behavior is represented, symbolized by murders being down. So that internal temperature, is not translating into external behavior that's taking the life of other people.
Well,
is that good? Is that a good sign? How do we read that, Rabbi? I have my thoughts. I'll share them with you. But how do you read it?
Well, thinking back to the conversation, and by the way, unfortunately, internal temperature sometimes has resulted external behavior. I mentioned, look at Hitler. Hitler hated the Jews so much that even when he was being defeated militarily, he continued to slaughter Jews. Right? Yeah. And that is hard to fathom. Pharaoh hated the Jewish people so much that even when plagues were inflicted upon him, he still continued to withhold permission to leave Egypt.
Yeah, that's paradox. It's contradiction. It's also, Rabbi, I've got to be, fully transparent here. It's also an expression of cognitive dissonance that is expressed in, the history of America. This tension created by a set of values around human dignity and that all men are created equal, and yet the struggle to treat all human beings as equal. But, when I think about hatred up, internal conditions, I'm of course, we're talking about inside the social body of society. So you have rising sentiments, grievance, tribalism, the rhetoric and hostility, goes up. Anger is expressed through what words, right? Ideologies, online protests, and all of that. But there is a restraint. There is some type of a boundary that we're not willing to cross into exercising violence. And I think that's important. If that's a message that's coming to us now, that although hatred is up, murders are down, we're finding a line that we're now refusing to cross. Am I reading that correctly? Is this a possibility here?
I think it's a possibility, except we've seen some horrific murders committed by people who are very hateful. So I'm not ready to make the full correlation, but it did say...
Have we reduced the hateful people? Is that what we're saying?
No, I'm saying there are people who killed because of their hatred. They were murdered. They murdered others because they were so consumed, so filled with hatred. We're going to have to take a break here. I'm getting a message from our great producer, Elias Raff. We'll come back and talk about this and other topics as well.
Okay, we'll be back. So stay tuned for more of The Rev and the Rabbi.
The Rev and the Rabbi on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
The Rev and the Rabbi.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Rev, one of the things I have found, looking back at history, is people always say that education is the answer. It's the antidote to hatred. And yet we have seen societies that were very cultured, very educated, and still there are so many who are filled with hate. Again, look at Nazi Germany. Look at the Nuremberg laws written by lawyers. Look at the death camps constructed by educated, architects and engineers. People who use weapons to hurt others. Weapons made by people who are very smart. So it's more than an education. We often say you need a moral education, not just education by itself.
Yeah, the inner person, the conscience. That's why the internal and external here. We talk a little bit about the temperature being up, hatred being up, murders down, but they're external controls. It's sort of representing that things are being regulated or managed on the surface at least, and we don't know. Is it because there are better policing strategies? Is it, fewer spontaneous street confrontations? We know there are more cameras, data being shared. People are avoiding physical risk. It's been freezing outside, which to a degree, I don't know if that makes a difference because you had thousands of people out in Minnesota protesting. I don't know if our correlation is that easy, that clear. You know what I mean? Violence is being contained, displaced, or delayed for factors that some of them we may not know.
Yeah. And also, it's easy to hate someone no matter what the weather is. You can hate someone while you're home. You can hate someone on the internet. You can communicate all forms of, hate-filled messages without going outside. So, in a sense, it's easier to be a hate monger than a murderer. When it's cold.
Yeah, I'm concerned, and because we have been dealing a lot in the mental health spaces over the last several years in our church and association of churches and organizations we worked with Columbia University around mental health, but when hatred rises and murders fall, it usually means that conflict is moving inward. Or sideways instead of outward. So people are angry, but they may be turning that anger inward, and that's a concern that people get inwardly so stressed out about what's happening externally, and that's not peace. It's managed tension, and at some point in time, that's going to break. So what's the answer, Rabbi? What is the answer to these things?
I was listening to Bishop Hicks, who this week becomes the Archbishop of New York.
Of New York, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he said something I found very compelling. He said, if you go outside St. Patrick's Cathedral, you see that depiction of Atlas, carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Atlas is bent over. When you walk into the church, you see the Christian representation of Jesus. And Jesus is holding the world in his hands. And he contrasted the two, and I thought of Moses with the tablets, that if you're doing something all alone, it's extremely heavy, if not impossible, to bear that weight. But if you're doing it with community, if you have others who are standing with you, then you can stand straight and not be bent over, not feel the pain of the world on your shoulders, so to speak, or on your back. And I think when you say, how do we address it? Mental health is a problem collectively we must address. It can't just be a handful of people who are out there demonstrating or writing about it and talking about it because it's loved ones of theirs who are suffering. It's our problem. That's the Bible, right? If you find someone dead on the street, you have to say, well, you have to take an oath. We did everything we could to prevent the loss of this life. And can we say we did everything we needed to do to save people who are mentally disturbed? I don't think we can.
It's interesting. There's a passage in the New Testament in the book of James, and it basically asks the question, why are there fightings and conflicts among you? Isn't it because of the conflict within your own hearts? Mm-hmm. And it is true. If there is conflict within the individual, it's going to spill out into society in some way. So we have to be conscious of where people are and create environments and lifelines that speak to the conflicts that are going on inside of individuals. I think it's more important. You're right. It's about we. If we try to do it alone, we fail. We will be hunched over with that globe looking quite huge on the back of Atlas. That's a wonderful metaphor.
It was so disturbing to read of what it was 16 or 17 people who lost their lives in the snowstorm. I heard all this discussion, well, we're not doing enough housing, but in the meantime, people are dying. So we can have all the discussions, we can have all the arguments, but you can't just let people die, and say, well, we haven't done enough when you could have done more. At least get them into shelters. As dangerous as they are, they're going to die on the street. That may not happen in the shelter if they're properly guarded. And I thought it was a terrible decision by the city government just to turn their backs on those people. And I thought that violates the tenets of faith, because faith will say to you, you got a responsibility to save people where they are, and stop getting into a debate as what we should or could be doing while they're dying. It's like, a patient in the hospital. You and I are arguing the meantime the patient is dying, and we're not doing anything about that. We're just having an argument.
Yeah.
So,
I try to think on both sides, pastoral and prophetic, balancing the two, grace and truth. So to point immediately at the administration or the person in charge when, they just got into office and this is a period of discovery, I'm going to, wait a minute. If there's a pattern, then I've got a serious problem. In the meantime, we've got to do everything we can to help individuals who are out on the street in the cold. And some of them, Rabbi, feel safer on the street in the cold than in the shelters because they've been raped, abused, etc.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they have full capacity to make that decision. But what I'm saying is whenever there's been severe cold, people have died on the streets. This is not the first time. And one would think, given that there is a history of this kind of tragedy, that we'd be better prepared. And I just know, looking at it, I would say, if I have the opportunity to get them off the streets, into a room, into a car, anywhere but where they are, I have to do it. My faith dictates that. And I know it's a learning curve when you're elected, but there are certain things that are so basic that it shouldn't take a learning curve to tell you, get them into a better place immediately. Yeah. And then we could argue about a plan right after that. But right now, we want them to live.
Yeah, I get it. I understand that. We should respond. But it's a lot easier said than done. It takes money, it takes locations, and once you spot the locations, there's security, there are medical issues that are involved, and mental health issues that are involved that come into play, because a lot of people who are homeless, they have mental health problems.
Absolutely. Well, we've heard about supportive housing. I don't know do you remember after Newtown, that shooting? And we all said, now you're going to see some real controls put into place. It didn't happen. Parkland, now you're going to see, a change in terms of government regulations. It didn't happen. So, unfortunately, history repeats itself, but very often it's allowed to repeat itself because of apathy, because people say, all right, let's go on to the next thing. It happens, not our fault, we can't do anything about it, it's going to happen again. And, the moment goes and we're off to the next, issue that we're talking about. So I think we need to really pause and see what could have been done, what should have been done, and needs to be done so we don't see this again, at least temporarily. Get them off those streets.
Yeah, I think you're right. We've got to decide that we're going to do whatever we can. Again, but I'm careful not to play, as we are on Super Bowl Sunday, armchair quarterback and make decisions like, in a vacuum. I'm careful of that, Rabbi. I look, as a leader of a very large collection of people over, from all of our campuses, et cetera, we're talking a good 110, 120,000 people. I am concerned, about how we make decisions and how we respond to issues. But I also understand that there are certain complexities that are tied to the issues that people are demanding us to respond to. Yeah.
Look, we can point fingers. We can point fingers all over the place, but we have to point a finger at ourselves too and ask, what else can we do? Not what can we do, what else can we do? And in my view, more could have and should have been done here. And we shouldn't have 17 people dead. And then we can have every argument you want as to, okay, how do we prevent people sleeping on the street? Let's do something. We come to the end of this segment there, Rev.
Yeah, we got to go to a break because you said history repeats itself. And I heard a statement say that history doesn't repeat itself, it adapts. That's an interesting thought. But we've got more of the Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Network. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The Rev and the Rabbi on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Rev and the Rabbi.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard on the last segment of today's Super Bowl Sunday program with the Rev and the Rabbi. So Rabbi, history doesn't repeat itself. It adapts.
Well, I remember Abba Eban was the foreign minister of Israel, then became ambassador to the United Nations. He said, what we've learned from history is that we haven't learned from history. Right? And in other words, when you see things that have happened and they continue to happen, what does that say to you? You haven't learned from it. You're doing the same thing all over again. So
I think it's a little bit of both. We do repeat. I mean, when you say history doesn't repeat itself, it adapts. It means that while certain patterns, motives, and power dynamics reappear over time, but they don't play out in exactly the same way.
Right, but there's
it's different. You know what I mean? The circumstances, technology, culture, the global context, the global village that we're dealing with today. It reshapes how we experience history, even though there's a repetition of certain patterns and motives, right?
Yeah, look, when I look back at I remember thinking, I look at what happens in Iran, and I think to myself, we're talking now about going to war. But isn't it true that if Iran were strangled economically, we wouldn't be talking about going to war? In other words, if people had taken the necessary precautions to say, we don't want to have a war with Iran, we want to prevent Iran from continuing its, hate-filled regime, what do? We all cut off have an embargo. Don't trade. I look at the countries that are trading with Iran. They're keeping it going. So if we took if we looked at history and said, if only we had done more to prevent Hitler, only we had done more to prevent any hate monger you want, it would have made a difference. But we didn't.
Yeah.
We didn't. So I'm saying what we learn from history is that we don't learn from history sometimes.
Yeah, and look, I'm a history buff. I love history because it helps me understand things the way they are today, because we just don't happen to get here. We're here because of things that happen along the way. And for me, it helps me understand better, and I can respond better. So, Rabbi, you and I were talking. This is the last segment, so we got to make sure we cover this. This is Super Bowl. Two things we need to cover. Our friend, Cardinal Dolan, who we spent time with doing a television show this past week. But let's talk about Super Bowl, the ads. Rabbi, 2026 Super Bowl ads. 30 seconds. 30 seconds, Rabbi. Averaging, you get this, you ready for this? $8 million for 30 seconds. And if it's a premium slot, it's $10 million. Can you imagine that? $10 million for 30 seconds.
Remember that there are people making calculations. They're saying, if we can get 30 or 60 seconds, as exorbitant as it is, the return from it will be tremendous. It's a business calculation. They're not doing it for, although I got to say with Robert Kraft, there's the return, there's no monetary return there. It's done because of public interest when he talks about hatred. But the other ads, the money must come back. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. So
well, that's it.
When I talk to John Katsimatidis, I think John should be advertising the Reverend The Rabbi at Super Bowl.
Well, it's worth the $10 million.
Exactly.
I agree. but listen. Super Bowl is one of the most watched TV events in the United States. It attracts over 100 million viewers, Rabbi. You know what I mean? So you're going to hit 100 million viewers in 30 seconds. I can understand why it's going to be incredibly expensive, all right, to get your brand out there in front of 100 million. And you got to do it in a way that it doesn't get lost in all the other commercials. Yours has to have a great degree of distinction. And it costs money. You're paying $8 million to $10 million for the time, right? But you're also spending millions of dollars to create, to create the thing. You know, that's real.
Yeah. But I tell you, I think back to what we talked about earlier. There is a warmth. There is a very fine feeling. People sitting around watching it, even people who are rooting for different teams can sit together, can cheer, can boo the other, but they don't kill the other. They don't destroy the other. You know, if you lose the Super Bowl, you're not a loser. Your team was defeated. Your team was defeated. You try. Well, I'm not talking about the Jets fans. No, but but seriously, if you just think about it, if I studied for a test and put all the work in, and I didn't get a good grade, I know some people say I failed. You didn't fail. You were defeated, but you did everything you could. You tried. You studied. It just so happens the test was much harder than you had anticipated, or whatever it was. It didn't cover the material you had covered. But sometimes we label people, you're a loser. I remember back in Boston years ago, when the Red Sox were playing the Mets, remember? And the ball went through the legs of the ball. You
said Red Sox, not Red Coats, right? You said
Red Sox. Red Sox.
Okay, thank you.
It went through the legs of the first baseman. He had to leave Boston with his family. They moved out to Idaho. He was reviled by the fans there, the loser. And you think, wow, here's a guy who's a father, a husband, contributed to his society, and yet look how he was maligned because of an errant play. Doesn't matter.
He dropped the ball. It doesn't matter. Don't drop the ball. Let me reflect for another moment on the ads. All right, 100 million people watched. But here's what they also found: a study showed that 40% of the viewers tune in mainly for the ads. They don't even watch the game. They are tuning in to see the ads, and about half of them actually end up purchasing the products based upon the ads. So that's reach. So, you've got to justify the spending of that kind of money. And for many brands, it's worth it. It's worth it. We're not going to talk about the halftime show.
Can I ask you, when's the last time you bought a product because it was advertised in the Super Bowl?
Rabbi, I will tell you, it has to be at least 20 years ago.
Really? By the way, we got 3 minutes. We got 3 minutes left.
They don't inspire me. It doesn't inspire me. I'm watching the game, man. I enjoy the ads, but it's entertainment. Yeah. It's not like I'm looking to see if I should buy in.
By the way,
we're getting more political and social.
Well, just to put a name to the player, it was Bill Buckner and Mookie Betts had hit it. They became best friends. They traveled the country together. And they saw each other as larger than just players on opposing teams. And I think that's the kind of spirit. So if a team loses, so what? So what? There are other games, and you don't want your life defined by a game. So
there's more to life.
Yeah.
There's more to
Let's talk about Cardinal Dolan.
All right. Absolutely. You want to talk about him? You and I had a chance to be on the Catholic channel and just talk about him as a person. Larger than life as an individual. And like I said on the show, he's not a person you meet, he's a person you encounter because he has that kind of impact on you when you interact with him.
And when he encounters you.
The love, all of that emanates from him.
He embraces you I mean, he gives you a hug that you're going to feel for a few days thereafter. He's just, you said larger than life. Isn't it interesting? In Hebrew, the word for life, Chaim, is in the plural. He lives life in the plural, helping others, doing for others, inspiring others. So he's a larger than life figure. And I think New York is indebted. No matter what your faith is, he was our cardinal. He was our archbishop. Everybody related to him, even if they didn't practice the same traditions that he did, which I thought was remarkable.
Yeah, 17 years, and now there's a new one who was installed on Friday, and you and I had the opportunity to attend the installation, and a new period begins. We'll see, what now Cardinal Hicks, our Archbishop of New York, how he interacts with leadership and the city itself. We'll see.
And already there's a warm relationship between the two of them, between the Archbishop and the Cardinal. As a matter of fact, I understand that Archbishop asked the Cardinal, stay in the residence. You can live here. You don't have to move out. And, Cardinal very gracious said, no, this is your home now. And, I'll live elsewhere. So very special.
Nice.
Both of them, very special. And we look forward to sharing a new relationship. But we don't discard the old relationship. He's a member of our family.
And we're going to pray for the Seahawk fans' disappointment. I really feel
I'm going to feel badly for them for the moment. But look, it's a game.
Look at how you timed it. Look at
as long as the Patriots win, it's a game. Doesn't mean anything. Yeah. Well, good discussion today. Real good discussion.
Yeah, wonderful time. Thank you to our producer, our engineer, Elias. And thank you, our listeners, for joining us here every Sunday on Red Apple Radio Networks for another episode of The Rev
and the Rabbi.
Till next time, stay safe. God bless.
Thanks for listening to The Rev and the Rabbi. You can hear The Rev and the Rabbi Sunday mornings at 7. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
Looking for financial insights you can trust?
How do you protect yourself as an investor? What's the strategy?
I think it's really simple. I think you just want to be diversified in your portfolio.
The Payne family brings real-world experience to every conversation.
Well, I think that's the problem right now, is a lot of people that are close to retirement, they're taking so much risks. And if we do get a big sell-off, it could derail their retirement.
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.